buy my course. I'll teach you how to sell hats online today. So this is a cringy shot for an opening to a video that isn't a get-rich-quick story. This has been 5 years of very late nights and very high-stress situations, but essentially I started this business because in 2017 my wife, Natalie, rented me a Lamborghini to drive through the mountains of Colorado. And I've always wanted a Lamborghini my entire life, and I've always been obsessed with cars. I've had too many of them. And after that moment, it was just set in stone that I wanted to buy one. I was doing some research online, trying to figure out ways I could make money online, and I stumbled across a website you could use to sell t-shirts on, and basically started selling t-shirts with my designs on them to people that like cars on Facebook. And after doing that with some success, I decided that I also wanted to sell hats as well, and quickly discovered there wasn't an option to do that online. And that's where I got the idea to start selling the hats online, and started out just figured out how many hats I need to sell per month to afford a Lamborghini car payment, and that's where I set the bar for myself. And I think I sold 100 hats within the first couple of days of going live, just to people on Facebook with my car designs on them. And at that point, I was just using an e-commerce platform that was pre-built. But after I sold the first 100 hats, I could quickly realize that this is like an actual business that I could get into and start doing legitimately. And I started writing the code. It took about 8 months to get the base website up and running. By March of 2018, we actually released the website. But the whole point of starting the business was to buy this car. Where it started, went from basement to garage. It's also where Rowan was born. Started in the living room on my computer, created the website there, and then bought the first machine and put that in the basement. Figured I'd learned my lesson to not put machines downstairs, and I didn't. Learn more about that in a little bit. Once I did that for a while, I finally bought the 6-head machine, and that obviously wouldn't go in the basement here. So then we put it in the garage. So I finished out the garage and put the business in the garage. And shortly after, sold the house and moved. After we had a nice, legit setup in the garage, and put that in the basement of the other house. Oh yeah, I mean, I was working my day job as a software engineer, and kind of, like I was saying earlier, working backwards how I could afford a Lamborghini, and making hats seemed to be the way to do it. So that's when I eventually pulled the trigger on buying a machine, which basically forced myself to at least get enough sales to pay for the machine, because I didn't want to pay for that myself. Same situation for when I bought the big machine too. It's even way more expensive than just the single head. And that put me in another position where I had to at least sell that many hats to cover the payments. So putting yourself in an uncomfortable position and forcing yourself to grow is what I did. And what's funny, like the month that I got the 6-head machine was the month Rowan was born. So I got 2 babies that month. I got a giant machine and a human baby. It was fun. And learning how both of them worked was very difficult. All right, yeah, so this is, I guess, the second location outside of our old house. This is where I had my office, I had my desk, the single-head embroidery machine, and when we moved into the house, this wall was actually solid. We cut a hole in the wall and put these doors here, and that's where we put the big 6-head embroidery machine back in that like closet section there. Like, it was one of the selling points of the house was I was able to get the big machine in the basement because it's a walkout basement. It's one of the reasons we decided to actually buy this house versus another one. We had a flatbed tow truck come down this hill and then into the yard and back up and put the 6-head machine down through these double doors into the basement. And then getting it out was equally as fun. We had to back the tow truck up again, and then we pulled the machine like up the hill onto the back of the tow truck. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, this is where we spent a lot of time. I would do my day job from the desk when COVID hit, and then run the machines at night. And then if I was ever at the office, Natalie, my wife, would be in here making the hats for me while I was at work. That was actually a huge moment for me. Like when I'd come home from work before COVID and my wife had already done the hats for me, it made me realize how powerful it would be to actually hire someone to do that for me too. So that was a pretty eye-opener and turning point too, was having her around to be able to run the machines while I was at work, and also take care of our kid. So shout out to Nat, she's a MVP. So this is the location that I actually took the business out of the house and moved into when I hired my first part-time employee. Just a little 700 square foot hallway that was just big enough to fit the 6-head and a couple more machines and a couple desks. But this was the hardest decision to make. Well, aside of the machine payments, this was an extra payment on top of that I had to make, because I was making the ends meet at home, but I was just paying for the machines and had a little bit of extra money coming in. But making the jump into getting into another building was an extra expense that, on top of actually paying payroll too on an employee, that was super scary to bite off on. But once I did it, the return was tenfold. Having someone run the machines during the day while I was doing my day job, and I could focus on the software and the code and actually building the business on the back end was crucial. So another turning point in scaling the business was actually getting out of the house and getting into a space. Anytime I saw a building that had like a sign on it for lease or for sale or something, I'd always look at it and like dream, like, man, I wish I had a building like that. And like I'd always pull into like lots like this, and I saw like it was like a handwritten note slapped to the front of the window that said for lease, and it had a phone number on it. Called the guy, and like he had actually leased the building for like 3 years or something. He had a year left on his lease, and he shut his business down due to COVID, and he ended up renting it to me for like a fraction of what the actual rent cost was. So it was just like meant to be that I found this space and subleased it from someone for a good price that pushed me into actually moving out of the house into this place. Yeah, so this is our second commercial location. We'll call it that. But this is like a 2,700 square foot space that when we moved in, I'm like, this place is huge. We can do so much here. And then like 3 months later, we're like, oh gosh, this is not huge. We're out of space. We need to move. This place is really cool. I wish we could have stayed here, because Main Street in Collinsville, it's a really cool place. And we got really great restaurants here to eat at too. So I really like this place. Just wasn't big enough, unfortunately. The business has turned into something so much more than just a way to get the car that I want. It's now the well-being for over 20 employees. My mom works there. Danny's mom works there. My sister-in-law works there. It's just so much more now than just a way to make money and get the cars I want. We've got tens of thousands of customers that have trusted us with their hats for their business. There's just so many things that have happened in the past few years of growing this thing that you realize it's so much more than just, like I said, a way to make money. I've got the car I've always wanted. There's some more that I'd like to have, but that'll probably be a few more years of growth before I get those. But this video is basically just going to go into the story of how I built the business and where I started and where we are today and where I would like to get in the future. This thing's been a rocket ship. That's why we got the rocket in our logo. I always wanted it to be, and we're going to continue to scale and grow as quickly as we can, but also take those along for the ride with us that have been with us since the start, and hopefully they can get themselves a Lamborghini someday too, not just me.